I'm at a loss and don't know how to deal with this situation. Together, 22 years, married 10, no kids. I've helped him through some dark times in terms of his mental health and have at times been subject to very controlling behaviors from him. Although now I thought we were in a good place, I mention those points as I feel like I have almost been faultless in this marriage. And now I'm dealing with lies and what I feel is an emotional affair. And I just don't know what to do. I feel betrayed and that my loyalty is being thrown in my face. I'll try not to make this too long, but do want to give some context. Husband runs a small business, employs around 20 staff. About 5 years ago, he employed a younger, early 20s woman, very attractive, just his type. I'll call her Jane. I used to have justified trust issues, but for around the past 10 years, I have had faith in him and our marriage. So I genuinely had no concerns about this woman. I never checked his phone, didn't mind seeing him messaging, calling her, etc. His business keeps him very busy, and he constantly has contact with his employees, clients, customers, etc. Even when on vacation. I'm used to it. The issue started when we went on an amazing trip in January. I'm going to try to bullet this so it's clear. On the plane on the way, I just happened to notice as I looked over that he was messaging Jane. I thought that was a little odd, but I didn't say anything. But it triggered a slight worry in my mind. One night, we had a bit of a strange discussion about finances. He earns a lot more money than I do. But I feel we split things fairly given the discrepancy in our wages. For some reason, it came up that Jane splits everything 50-50 with her boyfriend. Even though she is on a low wage and her partner earns a lot more, I felt a bit offended that he might have been implying I should pay more. So I snapped and I did say something along the lines of course it's Jane that you're talking about, as I was still feeling a little worried, I guess, that he had been messaging her on the plane. I told him also it was weird and inappropriate that he was discussing her finances with her as he was her boss. The conversation was over pretty quickly and no hard feelings lingered. On our last night before we moved to the next leg of our trip, he was constantly walking around with his face in his phone. He sat next to me and I happened again to notice he was messaging Jane. I didn't say anything, but then I noticed within minutes that the messages were deleted. I held it together and asked him when we got back to the hotel. He denied and TBH gaslighted me, turning it into a "you don't trust me" conversation. Eventually, he admitted it and said there was nothing in it. He was just worried after I'd made a snappy comment about her the other day. So he deleted it in case I got suspicious. Okay. I sort of could understand where he was coming from, so I left it there. I was very disappointed that he had lied to me, more so than the deleting. When we were home, I can't even remember how this happened, but he was showing me something on his phone and somehow clicked into their WhatsApp thread. All messages bar one were deleted. I obviously was angry about this and questioned him, and he swore blind it had been a phone glitch. Again, I let it pass, as even though I was worried and things didn't ring true, firstly, I wanted to believe him, and secondly, I had no proof of anything at this point. Sometime after this, he tells me one night about issues she is having with her boyfriend. Boyfriend sounds controlling and emotionally hurtful. I feel pleased he is opening up to me, as it makes me feel like there isn't anything being hidden. On one hand, I feel worried for Jane, as the things he tells me are concerning. On the other, I am pissed that she is talking about her relationship issues with my husband, her boss. I tell him this and I tell him he's really crossed a professional and personal boundary. He seems surprised but then apologizes and understands where I am coming from. Promises to set more professional boundaries from now on. More details come out about Jane's boyfriend. Apparently, he has been following her around, waiting outside the office, following her into appointments she has straight from work, and then questioning her if the appointment is slightly out from the time she said etc. Again, I am torn. I tell my husband that this is really concerning behavior and she needs to leave him. But then my spidey senses kick in, and I feel her boyfriend is maybe also concerned about their relationship. I tell my husband this. My husband again seems surprised, as if this didn't occur to him. I tell him he needs to be careful. One night in bed, when he was sleeping, he called me Jane. I didn't tell him, but it hurt. A couple of nights later, he did it again. twice in one night. He woke up as he was saying it, so I told him. He was very apologetic, but again, I left it. I was hurt, but what did it prove? Random situation which perhaps I have no business being worried about, but I thought it was odd. Husband tells me one night that he has been trying to offload Jane onto Sarah, another employee, i.e. trying to get her to talk to her about her issues rather than him. It was Sarah's birthday, and even though they don't do gifts in the office, my husband and Jane bought her a gift between them. His reasoning was, I wanted to make Jane and Sarah closer so they start talking more. Then I don't have to be involved in her life. But I straight up said this was weird to get a gift just from the two of them. Very much what a romantic couple will do. We argued over this a little, as I'm starting to get fed up with having to tell him how to behave in a marriage. He tells me one night that Jane has been crying so much at work that he gave her a few days off and told her to go and stay with her parents. By pure chance, the following week, I happened upon a message she sent to him saying something like, I'm on my way home now, so won't be able to talk, but thanks for this weekend, it was the best. And it ended with a love heart emoji. Firstly, I didn't like the way it sounded like they have to speak in secret. Secondly, it's inappropriate to send your married boss a love heart. I didn't say anything about this, as it kind of linked into her going home, but something doesn't feel right about it. I'm not going to say what it is, as it makes this too identifiable, but Jane tells my husband a very, very shocking secret about her boyfriend. Something about his personal life and how he sometimes chooses to live it. Something that is so left field that I was gobsmacked when my husband told me. But then I started to lose sympathy for her big time. Why is she telling my husband this? It was such a betrayal of her boyfriend's trust. I now feel this woman is out for sympathy and attention from my husband. Any which way she can get it. To make it worse, my husband actually knows her boyfriend and some of his family. Not so long ago, my husband had his WhatsApps open on his laptop, as he always does working. I glanced over and saw there was a message to Jane's BF saying, WTF was all that about. I felt sick straight away, as it looked like there had been some sort of issue between my husband and her boyfriend. I so wanted honesty from my husband, and I asked him how his day was. Fine. I asked him if anything interesting happened. No, I asked this a couple of times. Still no. We went to bed, and I told him he was lying to me. He admitted it and said Jane had gone to a medical appointment after work, close to the office. After this, she had come back to the office to get her laptop. As she was in there, her BF came storming in, asking what she was doing, why she wasn't at her appointment, swearing at her at church. I just felt so upset, as this was confirmation to me that her BF must, in fact, have some suspicions like I do. My husband and I talked for a long time. He said he didn't tell me, as he felt anxious to bring her up now, given the few things that had gone on. He said he was really, really sick of getting caught up in her personal life, and that he had already taken a big step back from really talking to her about things outside of work. He was getting really severe anxiety issues, and he said this was making him feel how he did the previous year, when he had some mental health issues. After a lot of talking, we agreed to leave it on the understanding that I don't need to know all the ins and outs of his conversations with her, but I expect to be kept up to date when something like what happened that night happened. I want openness. I weirdly felt some relief after this, as I believed what he was saying. But then, doubts started to creep in again, and I started to feel really unsure. I did something I haven't done in the whole time we've been married. I looked at his phone. I felt horrible for doing it. I looked at his text messages. None there. But I saw he had deleted messages from her. I restored them. They only restore for a certain time. So clearly others were now gone with no chance of seeing them, i.e., the one referenced above with the love heart emoji. So this isn't the first time he has deleted them. In a nutshell, they were: Friday morning, husband sent, sorry I missed your call. I assume the call was Thursday evening, Jane. Don't worry. Sorry that I called. H, something like, why, please don't be. J, I shouldn't have been calling. H, can't fully remember, but something like, why were you calling? J. I knew I couldn't come back to see you after physio, but I just wanted to hear your voice. H. Oh, Jane. Then he moves straight away into work chat. Nothing flirty, like the very next load of messages are short, to the point, solely work chat between them. But then the last message. H. Delete this convo and let's move work. Work. WhatsApp. J. Okay. H. Delete. So, I'm unsure if anyone will read that, as it is so long. But I don't know what to think. Has he just been stupid and allowed this woman to get too close? Is something going on? He is lying, that's a fact. I'm just really heartbroken and feel too old to be back playing games that feel we should have left in our youth. I'm not sure whether to confront about those texts or see if anything else happens. But I'm struggling so hard. I'm good at compartmentalizing things and just getting on, but I cried all the way to work, and I just wonder how I will carry on day to day with this hanging over me. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I stopped reading after the third or so bullet. Why is this other woman's name in your husband's mouth so often? That alone is hugely disrespectful to you. At a minimum, multiple professional and personal boundaries have been violated. It's pretty clear that the mention of this woman upsets you, yet your husband does it again and again. And you're happy he's opening up? You deserve better than that. All that behavior is telling your husband is that it's okay to keep doing whatever he's doing and keep pushing you. Anyway, this isn't just the minimum of anything. Your husband is way, way too involved in this woman's life, and she is way too personal with him. The problem now is that what is he going to do? Fire her? She probably has lots of blackmail fodder in her phone. OP, you don't deserve to be treated like this. You don't have any children tying you to this man. I would seriously consider if you want to spend the rest of your life dealing with this nonsense, because there will be other Janes comment too. You're calling it an emotional affair? Why? Just because you don't have evidence that they're having intimacy? If he has deleted even one message, they are likely either having intimacy or he is trying his hardest to see her naked / have intimacy with her. He's probably looking at her at work every day and getting enticed, turned on by her flirting with him. And it's a hell of a rush to hide something dirty like this from your wife. Now, for the update. Thanks for all the comments and advice on my last post. I really needed it. So, things have escalated since then. I found out that my husband had secretly given Jane a raise without consulting me or the other partners in the business. It was a significant amount, way above what anyone else received. When I confronted him, he said it was because she was taking on more responsibilities, but it didn't add up. She was already stretched thin with her current workload. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more personal than professional. Then, Sarah, the employee my husband tried to push Jane onto, quit. She said the office dynamics were too much for her, and she felt like she was being used as a pawn in whatever was going on between my husband and Jane. This left me feeling even more isolated and unsure of whom to trust. The next blow came when I discovered that my husband had been paying for Jane's therapy sessions. He claimed it was a business expense, that helping her would improve her performance at work. But why was he so invested in her well-being, to the point of using company funds? It felt like a slap in the face, considering how he had neglected his own mental health, which I'd been supporting him through for years. I was at my wit's end, and in a moment of weakness, I did something I regret. I messaged Jane's boyfriend, pretending to be a concerned friend, and hinted that she might be getting too close to her boss. I thought if he confronted her, it might bring everything out in the open, but it backfired. He became aggressive towards Jane, and she ended up confiding even more in my husband, who, in turn, became her knight in shining armor. The situation at home became unbearable. My husband was constantly on edge, and I felt like I was walking on eggshells. We had a huge fight where he accused me of being paranoid and controlling, and I accused him of having an affair. He stormed out and didn't come back until the next day, refusing to discuss anything further. I was left feeling more alone than ever. I had no concrete proof, just a gut feeling and a string of lies and secrets. I decided to give him an ultimatum: cut all personal ties with Jane, or our marriage was over. He agreed, but I could tell he was just telling me what I wanted to hear. The next day, I found out that Jane had been promoted to a managerial position, which made no sense given her lack of experience. It was clear that my husband had made the decision without any input from the other partners. I felt betrayed and humiliated. It was obvious to everyone what was going on, and I was the last to know. I should have left then, but I didn't. I convinced myself that I was overreacting, that there was a logical explanation for everything. I chose to stay and work on our marriage, but deep down, I knew I was making the wrong choice. Thanks for reading. My partner of 12 years cheats while I'm pregnant. So I leave him scrambling to fix his mistakes while I plan my next power move. I, a 28-year-old female, just found out that my partner, a 31-year-old male of 12 years, has been sexting in online chat rooms with local men for the past 7 months. To make things worse, I am 8 months pregnant with our second child. I want to preface all of this by explaining what happened in the days leading up to this. Before this day, we had a small disagreement about parenting styles, in which he felt that I disrespected him in my communication. So he had been giving me the silent treatment for 3 days. He would not look my way, or even be in the same room as me. After the 3 days of being completely shunned, I finally had enough, as this is emotionally hurtful, and we live under the same roof with our child who is watching all of this go down. I confronted him about it and told him how immature he is behaving, and that I did not deserve this treatment or stress, especially while pregnant. This had caused me immense stress, and I had not eaten anything for the whole 3 days at this point, due to loss of appetite from the stress and crying all day. The baby is already developing much slower than they should be for how far along I am, and I have been needing bi-weekly ultrasounds to monitor the baby's growth due to this. He is aware of all of this as he has been present during my appointments. His response to all of this was that the treatment I have been getting is justified, and he will let me know when and if he decides to speak to me again, and that I will just need to wait or leave him and move on with my life. I was in disbelief of the words coming out of his mouth and how cruelly he was treating me, because it was completely disproportionate to the small disagreement we had. My intuition was telling me that something must be up, because it seemed like he was just looking for any little reason to pick a fight with me, or possibly even just leave this relationship. A huge argument ensued, and I ended up going through his phone. I found all of the evidence on his phone. Screenshots of exchanged lewd pictures and bits and pieces of the chats that were all saved in his files. In one of the chats, one man had even given him his address, no more than a 10-minute drive away from our home. I was sick to my stomach and trembling after making the discovery. I could not breathe and had to put the phone down to steady my breath and lower my heart rate. He just kept staring at me and asking over and over, "What's wrong? What happened?" And his tone had completely changed from a condescending, argumentative shouting to an "oh shoot, what did I do?" kind of tone. He had no clue that those chats were saved to his files and lost all color in his face when I confronted him and showed him what the frick I was looking at on his phone. I've never seen him look so guilty before. A huge, deafening silence before he got super defensive and denied everything multiple times. He was claiming that it was all spam, but eventually he admitted to it because the evidence was too incriminating with pictures of him and all. In front of him, I shared all of the files directly to my personal email in case he ever tried to turn this on me and gaslight me into thinking this is somehow my fault, which is his go-to move. He claimed that he was just curious and bored, but that he is most certainly not gay. How the frick can I believe that? My thing is, why would it take 7 months and multiple conversations to unalive your curiosity? Why were people giving him their address? Why were these all local men? Has he met up with any of these people and cheated on me physically, and then laid in bed with me at night after that? Has he exposed me to any STDs? How much of it was a lie? Was any of it true? Am I just a cover-up story? Is this why our intimacy life sucks? I mean, I know I'm pregnant, so it wouldn't be the best right now. But even before that, it was lacking. My mind is racing, and I don't even know where to begin straightening my thoughts. He claims that he loves me, and that he's not curious anymore. so he had stopped. But I have evidence of conversations as recent as this past December. This was ongoing throughout the time span that we conceived this child, my birthday and Christmas, all while smiling in my face and acting like we are a happy family. How can he do something like this if he actually loved me? He says that he's remorseful and has apologized to me, and says that he won't do anything like this ever again and that he will even go to therapy. But the problem is that now the trust is broken, and I don't believe anything that's coming out of his mouth. I am completely disgusted by him. I feel so stupid, dirty, and exposed. I thought we were happy this whole time. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm too pregnant for this, and I need some unbiased opinions on my situation so that I know that I am not hastily making decisions because I am pregnant and emotional. Edit. He claims that he has never physically cheated on me or met up with anyone, and that all of this was only online. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I am so sorry he did this to both you and your family. The first step is for you to reach out to a counselor. A counselor can help you sort through what is happening. To be honest, this is likely the end of the marriage. Unfortunately, this situation is quite common. A man wants a wife and family for appearances, but prefers to have intimacy with other men, sometimes with multiple men. Right now, he will say and do anything to keep you from leaving, but this pattern will continue. After seeing a counselor, you will probably need to speak with an attorney about your options. Comment 2. Whatever his label is, whether gay, curious, or bisexual, none of that matters. He cheated. And even if he didn't meet them in person, it still counts as emotional cheating. He broke your marriage vows and your trust. Get yourself tested. Create a safe space for yourself. I would kick him to the couch until he moves out. It will be difficult for you to leave in this situation, especially with a child. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around to hear more about what's been going on. So, after finding out about the sexting, I was a mess. I couldn't look at him without feeling sick. But with a baby on the way, I had to figure out what to do next. I decided to stay with my sister for a bit, just to clear my head. She's been my rock through all this, reminding me to eat and trying to keep my spirits up for the baby's sake. Meanwhile, he's been blowing up my phone with texts and voicemails, begging for forgiveness, promising he's changed. He even started therapy like he said he would. But words are just words, right? I needed to see real change, and I wasn't sure if I could ever trust him again. Then, out of nowhere, my old friend from high school reached out. She had heard through the grapevine about my situation and wanted to offer support. We met up for coffee, and she told me about her own divorce and how she managed to rebuild her life. It was comforting to know someone else had been through something similar and came out the other side. Back at home, things were getting tense. He was trying to prove he could be a better man, doing all the housework, taking care of our first kid, even cooking meals and leaving them on my sister's doorstep. But every time I saw him, I just remembered the chats and the lies. One day, I got a call from the doctor. They were concerned about the baby's growth and wanted me to come in for more tests. I was scared out of my mind. I didn't want to go alone, but I couldn't imagine asking him to come with me. In the end, my sister went with me, and thankfully the tests showed the baby was okay, just small. After that scare, I realized I had to think about what was best for the kids. I agreed to meet him for a talk. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, and for the first time, I saw genuine remorse in his eyes. He admitted that the sexting was an escape from his own insecurities, that he felt like he wasn't enough for me, especially with the baby coming. He said he never met up with anyone, but he knew that didn't excuse his behavior. We talked for hours, and it was the most honest conversation we'd ever had. I told him about my fears, my disappointment, and how his actions made me feel. He listened, really listened, and promised to do whatever it took to make things right. In the end, I agreed to give him a chance to prove himself, but I made it clear that this was his last one. We started couples therapy, and it's been hard, really hard. We're trying to rebuild from the ground up, and some days I'm not sure if we can do it. Just last week, he did something that surprised me. He organized a small family gathering, just us and a few close friends, to renew our vows. It was his way of showing his commitment to us, to our family. It was bittersweet, standing there with him, remembering the good and the bad. But it felt like a step in the right direction. So here we are, 2 weeks later, taking it one day at a time. I'm about to give birth to our second child, and I'm hopeful and cautious. I want to believe that we can get past this, that we can be a happy family again. But I know it's going to take time, and I'm prepared for that. Thanks for reading. My family insists on spreading lies about me. So I call a meeting and cut them off to teach them a lesson in respect. Recently, my wife, our kids, 14-year-old male, 12-year-old male, 10-year-old male, and I visited my mother for my aunt's funeral, while my stepfather, stepbrothers, and half-brothers were also there. I absolutely adore my wife and our sons with all my heart. My wife has been my best friend since 3rd grade, and she's my soulmate. And our children are the 3 best products of our love. They're my world, and I would do absolutely anything for them. My feelings for the rest of my family are not remotely as tender as those for my wife and kids. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate them, but I mostly feel a sense of obligation to them, not anything near adoration. Lately, I've been wondering if it's quite appropriate to say I love them at all. Although some of them, e.g., my stepbrothers, are very pleasant people, some of my relatives have largely caused me more headache than anything else, e.g., my mother and my youngest half-brother. However, my mother is an amazing grandma to my kids, and most of my step and half-brothers are good uncles. While I don't have a personal desire to be close with any of them anymore, I absolutely want them to be in my children's lives because of the love they give them. So, fairly late at night after I thought everyone was asleep, my wife and I were sitting on my mom's deck and talking for a while. I mentioned that I don't feel much of a connection with anyone there anymore, but I was happy to carry on like everything was fine, because our kids deserve the best and easiest possible relationship with them. My wife told me I was an amazing father. I told her she was an amazing mother, and that's no exaggeration. And we then changed the subject. Turns out, the window to the room my youngest half-brother was staying in was open, and he was still awake and heard what we were talking about, as that room is right around the corner from the deck. He then tattled on me to our mother, and she and I had a big fight. Essentially, she said that if I felt that way about everyone, then she didn't want to see me, and the kids could visit her alone, and only alone. I said she was being ridiculous. It wasn't even like I was making a big deal out of it. My half-brother eavesdropped on a private conversation with my wife, then felt the need to tell her, and I didn't want to have to explain anything to my kids about why I suddenly never visit my mom anymore. We didn't really resolve the issue, and I'd like advice on how to proceed. Is it probably for the best to do what my mom says? Is there a way for me to easily explain this to my kids? I just don't know what to do. Any help is appreciated. Edit. I probably should have added more context to why I feel this way here. My mother never really tried to forge much of a connection with me, and doesn't make me feel loved, really. As soon as she met my stepdad, any attempt at nurturing a connection with me was completely gone, and I was kind of rejected in favor of my stepbrothers and half-brothers. I've always felt that she's held my father against me, rather than trying to see me as my own person and as her child. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I think your relationship with your family is very telling by the fact your grown adult brother listened in on your conversation and then told on you. I can only imagine what living that life was like. As a mother, I would be deeply hurt if one of my children felt that way, but I definitely wouldn't have caused a fight over it. However, that's also not a conversation to have at her home. It sounds like you should give your mother some space and yourself as well to figure out why you don't feel that familial love with them, and then have a conversation with your mother about it. But it also seems like your mother tried to blend a family at the expense of you. Comment 2. I can't imagine going to anyone's house and bad-mouthing them behind their backs when a conversation can easily be overheard, let alone relatives, and for a funeral. The funeral of your mother's sister, presumably. Why would you say those things that night and not just wait until you return to your own home where you could talk shoot to your heart's content. Your half-brother wasn't eavesdropping. You were talking to your wife on the patio. Your half-brother didn't have a drinking glass pressed against your door. And he didn't tattle. He was hurt and insulted, and wanted his and your mother to know. Talk about a lack of self-awareness. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around. Here's what went down this past week. After the blowout with my mom, things went from bad to worse. My youngest half-brother, the one who spilled the beans, decided to rub salt in the wound. He started spreading rumors about me and my wife, saying we were talking trash about the entire family, not just expressing my disconnection. This got back to me through my stepbrother, who's always been a straight shooter. I was fuming, but I kept it together for the sake of the kids. Then, my oldest son overheard one of my half-brothers talking about the rumors on the phone. He came to me confused and hurt, asking if we really hated our family. That was the last straw. I had to do something, but I didn't want to stoop to their level. I called a family meeting minus the kids to clear the air. It was tense, to say the least. My mother sat there with her arms crossed, my stepfather tried to mediate, and my half-brother wouldn't even look me in the eye. I laid it all out on how the rumors were lies and how it was hurting my family. I didn't yell, but I made sure they knew the gravity of the situation. But here's where I messed up. In the heat of the moment, I blurted out that maybe it was better if we just cut ties altogether. My wife's face went pale. She's always been the peacemaker, and I could tell she thought I'd gone too far. The room went silent. My mother started crying, and even my half-brother seemed taken aback. The next day, my stepbrother came to me with a plan. He suggested we host a family dinner, a sort of peace offering. I agreed, thinking it might mend some fences. But during the dinner, my youngest half-brother made a snide comment about my cooking. I lost it. I threw down my napkin and told him if he didn't like it, he could leave, and he did. He stormed out, and my mother followed him. The dinner was a disaster. My wife was upset, my kids were confused, and I felt like I'd let everyone down. But then, something unexpected happened. My stepfather, who had always been neutral, stood up for me. He told everyone that families shouldn't treat each other this way, and that my half-brother owed me an apology. It was a turning point. My stepbrother and the others nodded in agreement. They had seen the truth of the situation. The next day, my half-brother came over to apologize. It was awkward but sincere. He admitted he was jealous of the relationship I had with my wife and kids, something he'd always wanted. We talked it out and felt like a weight had been lifted. As for my mother, she's slowly coming around. She's realized that her grandkids mean more to her than holding on to grudges. We're taking it one step at a time, but it feels like we're moving in the right direction. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.